Thank you for visiting the Combs Waterkotte website and our YouTube channel. Our criminal defense law firm in Missouri has over 400 perfect reviews and a long history of client satisfaction, dismissals, charge reductions, and victories. We have created these audio articles to help protect your freedom and rights. If hired for your case, we'll not give up until you get fair justice. Persistent offender defense lawyer in Missouri. If you or someone you know has been arrested and is being charged as a persistent offender in Missouri, it is crucial to contact a reputable persistent offenders lawyer right away. Combs Waterkotte has the knowledge and experience necessary to defend you against persistent offender charges and minimize the impact they have on your life. Persistent offenders lawyer in Missouri. Repeat offenders are subject to harsher penalties under several Missouri criminal statutes. Moreover, Missouri's version of a three strikes law means that any prior felony conviction could be used to enhance your sentence, including decades-old offenses. Combs Waterkotte has over 50 years of combined experience and has successfully defended 10,000-plus cases just like yours in Missouri. Our skilled defense attorneys are dedicated to helping those facing extended sentences as prior and persistent offenders. We can ensure that you're treated fairly despite any prior convictions on your record. Call a Combs Waterkotte persistent offenders lawyer right away at 314-900-HELP or reach out online for a free confidential consultation. Habitual offender laws in Missouri. Habitual offender laws, also known as three strikes laws, increase sentences based on an offender's prior convictions. Judges have always considered a defendant's criminal history during sentencing. A shift occurred in the 1990s when legislatures took away some of a judge's discretion when considering criminal history by mandating minimum sentences for repeat offenders. For example, under the conventional sentencing structure, a judge might disregard prior offenses that were remote in time or type from the current offense. A judge might view a vehicle theft conviction from a joyride 30 years ago as irrelevant when sentencing someone to a domestic violence charge. Habitual offender laws are often viewed as unfair because they disregard these distinctions. Such regulations might force the judge to sentence you as a habitual offender, even if they disagree with the characterization. While these laws keep career criminals off the streets, these offenders would generally have received longer sentences anyway. Instead, the laws arguably make it impossible for many felons to ever lead a normal life due to lengthy prison stays for even minor offenses. Missouri's prior and persistent offender statutes. The Missouri revised statutes include several statutes that enhance sentences for repeat offenders. Some, such as the prior and persistent assault offender statute, apply to repeat offenses for the same crime. The state also has an overall statute that applies to prior and persistent offenders, even when the convictions are for different crimes. Some prior and persistent offender statutes that may influence your case include the following. Extended sentences for prior criminal conduct in Missouri. Missouri doesn't use the term three strikes. Instead, it implements extended sentences for prior and persistent offenders. This statute approves sentencing enhancements based on a convicted defendant's criminal history in three situations. The statute approves enhanced sentencing for prior criminal conduct. A more specific statute permits enhanced sentencing for prior criminal conduct. The court finds that the defendant is a persistent or dangerous offender. An example of the first enhancement appears in the state's stealing statute, which outlines the offense levels for various types of theft. The law specifically increases vehicle theft from a Class D felony to a Class B felony if the defendant has 2 prior convictions for vehicle theft within 10 years of the current offense. Thus, the law provides a mini 3 strikes enhancement for repeated auto, boat, or aircraft thefts. An example of the second enhancement applies to several crimes, including assault and DWI/DUI offenses. Under the prior and persistent assault offender statute, defendants are persistent assault offenders if they have 2 or more assault convictions within 10 years of the current offense. This sentencing statute allows courts to increase the sentence for an assault conviction by 2 steps for persistent offenders. The DWI/DUI sentencing enhancement creates 4 sentencing enhancements for the following: prior offenders with 1 prior DWI/DUI conviction, persistent offenders with 2 prior DWI/DUI convictions, aggravated offenders with 3 prior DWI/DUI convictions or 1 prior DWI/DUI plus a vehicular assault, manslaughter, or murder conviction from a DWI accident. Chronic offenders with 4 prior DWI/DUI convictions or 2 vehicular assault, manslaughter, or murder convictions from DWI accidents. The third enhancement is the general habitual offender law, which requires a finding that the defendant is a prior or persistent offender. Prior and persistent offenders in Missouri. Missouri defines a prior offender as someone previously convicted of a felony. A persistent offender has 2 or more prior felony convictions, or at least 1 dangerous felony conviction. A persistent misdemeanor offender has 2 or more prior misdemeanor convictions. The state also allows sentencing enhancements for 1 additional class of offenders. The term dangerous offender is defined based on the current offense rather than prior offenses. This type of offender has been convicted of a Class A, Class B, or dangerous felony and is being sentenced for an offense involving murder, endangering or threatening the life of another, or inflicting or attempting to inflict serious physical injury to a person. Defenses available against prior and persistent offender. Sentencing in Missouri. Your attorney can raise several defenses against sentencing as a prior or persistent offender. As a first matter, the law includes 2 important limitations on the characterization of prior and persistent offenders. First, the prior offenses can't have occurred with the current offense. In other words, you don't become a persistent offender if you're charged with 3 felonies for the current offense. Your attorney can assert that you don't fit the statutory definition if prosecutors seek an enhanced sentence for convictions that arose from the same crime. Furthermore, you must have committed and been convicted of the prior offenses before the commission of the current offense. Thus, you can only be classified as a persistent offender if your past cases ended with a conviction or guilty plea before the date of the current offense. If the prior charges were still pending, they don't count toward the persistent offender status. An additional defense strategy for avoiding these sentencing enhancements is to beat the current charges. Regardless of your criminal history, you can't be sentenced until you're convicted for the current offense. If you're acquitted, have your charges dismissed, or reach a plea deal for a reduction of the charges to a misdemeanor, you might not be subject to the sentencing enhancement for persistent offenders. The criminal defense strategies you raise to the charges you currently face will depend on the nature of the current charges and the evidence against you. For example, you might have an alibi that places you somewhere other than the crime scene, or you might have acted in self-defense. How a Waterkotte, Missouri persistent offender lawyer can help. When facing charges as a persistent offender in Missouri, choosing the right persistent offender defense attorney can make all the difference. At Waterkotte, we provide a team of experienced lawyers who assess the details of your case and investigate it thoroughly to determine the most effective strategy. We are dedicated to getting you the best possible outcome. What can happen if you fail to hire a skilled defense attorney for your persistent offender charges in Missouri? You may face harsher penalties, including a longer prison sentence. Without an attorney, you lose the chance to negotiate a plea deal. Prosecutors will push for the maximum sentencing without opposition. You might struggle to challenge prior convictions that increase your penalties. Navigating the legal system alone can lead to missed deadlines and other costly mistakes. A conviction could result in a permanent felony record affecting your future. You may have limited options for appeal or sentence reductions later. Hiring a skilled defense attorney gives you the best chance at a favorable outcome. Why choose Combs Waterkotte as your persistent offender lawyer in Missouri? Our persistent offender defense attorneys have decades of legal experience, including work in prosecutors' offices. We use that experience to find ways to resolve criminal charges fairly, whether the outcome involves a dismissal, reduction in charges, or a plea negotiation. If we can't resolve the charges through negotiation, we'll take on the state in court, arguing aggressively for an acquittal or a fair sentence. Reach out now to discuss your persistent offender status in Missouri. Our firm includes a former prosecutor, so we understand the pressure prosecutors face to keep habitual offenders locked up. However, we also know that these sentencing enhancements are often applied in cases where they serve no purpose. Our skilled persistent offender defense attorneys based in Missouri will work to make sure the court sentences you based on the current offense rather than your identity and background. Give us a call as soon as possible at 314-900-HELP or contact us online to get trustworthy legal support and protect your freedom and reputation.